If you live in the UK and you've got an RCD inside of your consumer unit that just keeps on tripping for no apparent reason, so maybe it's every couple of days, maybe it's every hour, maybe it's every time you switch something specific on, you've probably found yourself asking, is this dangerous, or is something seriously wrong with your wiring? And they always seem to trip at the worst possible times, don't they? I mean, you're either about to make a cup of tea, or the washing machine, or the dishwasher's about to go on, or the kids are upstairs playing on the PlayStation, and then all of a sudden, bang, half of the house goes dark. So in this video, I want to explain the most common RCD tripping causes that I see inside of my customers' homes. I want to share with you a few simple checks that you can do yourself, and then I also want to let you know when it's finally time to stop resetting it or to stop trying to figure it out yourself and get a qualified electrician in order to sort out your problems for you. Now, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Ryan from Sparks Will Fly Electrical. I am a qualified electrician who's based in and around the London area. And if you are currently facing any electrical issues and you'd like a quote from myself, or you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, you can get in touch with me by clicking the link. It should be somewhere up there on your screen now. And if not, it's also down below in the video description box and of course the comment section. Right, now let's get into it. First things first, what actually is an RCD? Because a lot of people, mostly non-electricians, call everything on their consumer unit a fuse or a breaker, which is understandable, but there is a difference. Nowadays, on most consumer units inside of the UK, you will have MCBs, and these are little individual switches that will operate each circuit. So you will have one for your upstairs sockets, your downstairs sockets, your lighting circuit, your cooker, your shower, so on and so forth. Then you've got what are called RCDs. Now, usually there'll either be one of them or two of them, and these are bigger switches that protect a whole group of the smaller MCBs inside of your circuits. And then finally, on newer homes and modern boards, you will have what are called RCBOs, which are like a combination of the two. Okay, I know it's a simplification, but an MCB and an RCD merged into one so that each circuit has its own protective devices. An MCB will trip if a circuit is either overloaded or shorted out. So there's either too much current flowing and something's drawing more power than the cable is designed to hold, or if there's a dead short, which is where two wires are touching each other inside of the cable. An RCD is a little bit different. Now, an RCD watches, or it measures, I should say, the current going out and the current coming back. And if some of that current going out is leaking away somewhere, and the amount between what's going out and what's coming back is too great, what the RCD will do is say, right, something's not right here, the measurements don't add up, and I'm cutting this off. So when your RCD or your RCBO trips, what it's really saying is somewhere on one of these circuits, electricity is leaking somewhere that it shouldn't be, and I'm turning this off before it hurts somebody or causes damage somewhere. So as annoying as it is, in most cases, your RCD or your RCBO tripping, it's actually doing its job and it's protecting you. It's not there to make your life difficult. It's not there to be a nuisance. It's there to stop you from getting a potentially life-threatening electric shock or a fire breaking out somewhere. So now that you know that, let's talk about the main reasons as to why RCDs or RCBOs trip inside of your house. Now, I'm going to go through the most common reasons that I see as an electrician. You'll probably recognize one or two or maybe even more if you're currently having this issue. The first really common reason is faulty appliances. Now, this is probably the number one causes that I see for nuisance RCD tripping. Things such as kettles, toasters, washing machines, dishwashers, old fridges, freezers, cheap extension leads, all of these types of appliances, as they get older, their internal insulation breaks down, or moisture will start to get in, or the components inside will start to fail due to age. And what that can cause is something called earth leakage, which is a tiny amount of current or electricity leaking to earth from the appliance. Now, on its own, a tiny bit of leakage doesn't sound like much, but an RCD or an RCBO, they're designed to detect exactly that. Now, if it sees more than usually 30 milliamps, which is 31 thousandths of an amp of difference between what's going out and what's coming back on any particular circuit, it will trip. So if you've got one appliance that's getting a little bit leaky, and then maybe you've got another one that's not so great and it's getting a bit older, and then you plug in a third, suddenly your RCD might say, nope, that's it, and it goes off. That's why sometimes everything will seem fine up until you turn on one particular appliance or thing, and then suddenly your whole house goes dark. The second really common reason is moisture and damp. Now, obviously, water and electricity do not mix, and RCDs or RCBOs, they're especially sensitive when moisture is involved. So common culprits here would be outside sockets, garden lighting, decking lights, old or maybe poorly fitted or poorly sealed junction boxes that are outside, or bathroom fans and bathroom lights, leaks inside of light fittings, those types of things. If you've got, let's say, an outside socket with a cracked cover, or a garden light that's been filling up with water every time that it rains, that type of issue will cause your RCD to trip. Same again in bathrooms. Now imagine steam getting into a poorly sealed light fitting or an accessory such as a fan or water ingress from above. Sometimes people don't even know that there's been moisture inside of a light until I take it down and it's all green and black and corroded inside. So if your RCD seems to trip, let's say when it's raining or when the garden lights are on or when somebody's using a socket externally outside or maybe when somebody's having a really long shower, moisture could quite easily be the cause of that RCD tripping. Issue number 3 is earth faults. Now, I'm not going to get too technical here, but this is quite a common one for us electricians. If somewhere on the circuit, one of the live conductors, so the line or the neutral, has come into contact with earth, maybe inside of a damaged cable, maybe behind a socket, maybe a junction box, the RCD or the RCBO will see that as a fault and it will trip. And the annoying part is that everything can seem to work perfectly, okay? Lights come on, sockets work, nothing looks obviously wrong to the homeowner. But usually when the RCD starts tripping randomly, it's because there's an earth fault hidden somewhere. And this is not something that I'd recommend that you try and find yourself because you'll struggle, especially if the fault is hidden inside of a cavity or under a floorboard, inside of a wall, a ceiling, that type of thing. This is where you really need a proper insulation resistance test and somebody who knows how to interpret the readings. Reason number 4, this could be a cumulative earth leakage from lots of different little things. So it's not always going to be one big dramatic fault. In a lot of modern homes, you've got things such as TVs, routers, mobile phone chargers, laptops, smart devices, computers, LED drivers, all sorts of electronics plugged in all over the house, and most of them plugged in 24/7. Now, every single one of these things will have a tiny amount of earth leakage within safe limits on its own, but when you've got dozens of these devices plugged in on the same RCD, those tiny leakages will add up. So what you'll get is everything will seem fine most of the time, and then somebody in the house will plug in one more thing or they'll switch one more thing on and the RCD trips, and it feels totally random. You don't know how. That's often just the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. It's that final bit of leakage that pushes it above its threshold. And again, that's where an electrician can test each circuit and each appliance to see where the majority of the leakage is coming from. Moving on to reason number 5, and this is damaged cables and DIY electrics. Now I'm talking to you, you know exactly who you are, and I see this a lot, it's very common. Somebody has usually put a nail or a screw through a cable when they're hanging a shelf or a TV on their wall, or they've done some questionable DIY wiring under a floorboard or in the loft, or they've extended a circuit with the wrong type of cable and they've buried junction boxes and cables together that shouldn't be together where they shouldn't have. Over time, those damaged or poorly terminated cables and connections, they can and they do break down, and they will start to create issues, which is when your RCD picks the problem up and again trips. And from your point of view as the homeowner, all you see is the RCD keeps tripping, it keeps going off, and I don't know why. But behind the scenes, what you don't know is there could be a damaged cable that is literally arcing away under a floorboard or in a wall cavity. And that's why I always say, if you have recently either had building work done or you've had to go yourself and you don't exactly know what you're doing and now your RCD's playing up, chances are you've made a mistake and that needs to be addressed ASAP before it turns into something more serious. Now, a very quick but important note to make. It's rare, but it can happen. Sometimes the RCD itself is faulty. Now, like any device, an RCD or an RCBO, they can and they do degrade over time. They can start tripping below their rated thresholds, or they can get mechanically stuck. Now, what you'll find is there's a test button on the front of them that you should be pressing. I recommend every 3 to 6 months, let's say, just to make sure that it does trip when you press it. Because if you're pressing that button and nothing happens, or it feels loose or stiff, that's a sign that it might need replacing or at least testing properly. But in my experience, like I said a moment ago, the RCD itself being faulty, it's a lot less common than what people think. 95 out of 100 times, maybe even more, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. There's an actual fault somewhere else on the circuit, or an appliance is causing issues somewhere, but your RCD itself is absolutely fine. So what should you do if your RCD keeps tripping? Now, I want to go through a simple, safe process that you can follow before calling somebody like myself out. Now, again, I'm not telling you to take your consumer unit apart, and please don't start pulling covers off and messing around with live cables if you are not competent, but I want to give you a few simple, safe checks that are perfectly fine for you to do, providing you follow exactly what I say. Step number 1, it's a fairly simple one. It's simply just to make note of when things trip. Is it when you turn on a certain appliance or put a certain plug in? Does it happen when it rains or when somebody has a long bath or shower? Is it random, or is there a pattern? And that information is really useful for both you and any electrician that you bring in. Okay, so start taking a journal or start taking notes of as and when your RCD is tripping. Step number 2 is to try the very basic unplug test. So if it's the sockets that are affected, then I want you to start unplugging everything from the circuit that it covers. I know it's a pain, but believe me, it's worth it. and then I want you to reset your RCD. Then I want you to start plugging things back in one at a time. If and when you plug something in and it instantly trips, you've probably found the culprit. If it only trips when multiple specific things are running together, then that could be what's called cumulative leakage or overload. Now, don't forget extension leads, especially I want you to think about the cheap old 4-way blocks that have been sat in the corner of the couch for the last decade, okay? They can cause problems too, so don't forget to unplug those as well. Step number 3 is to think about any outside circuits. So I want you to try turning off the MCB for your garden lights, for your sheds, outside sockets, hot tubs, anything that's outside and exposed to the weather. Then I want you to go and reset your RCD. Now, if it holds, then that points towards an outside issue. So moisture, damaged cable, that kind of thing. Step number 4 now, if it's still tripping with all of the obvious things unplugged and the outside circuits isolated, that is when, at least in my opinion, you need to stop the guesswork and you need to get it tested properly, because at that point you could have a earth fault, you could have damaged wiring, you could have multiple small issues that are stacking up, and the only way to properly find those issues is with the right test equipment and somebody who knows how to use it. Now, a really important safety point that I want to touch on is if your RCD trips instantly the second that you try to reset it and you've turned off everything, all of the individual MCBs that it covers, and it still won't hold, that is an indication of a more serious fault. I do not want you to keep forcing it back on over and over again. I even went to a job a couple of years ago where an older guy had got a big piece of gaffer tape and he just gaffer taped the RCD up. I got there and the board was arcing all over the place. It was a nightmare, okay? If your RCD keeps tripping, that is your house telling you something's wrong. I know it's tempting to try and keep flicking it back on, especially if your fridge is about to go off and all of the food's going to go to waste, and you just want your power back on for the evening, you can't watch TV, your lights are off, etc., etc. But constantly resetting or jamming an RCD break or an RCBO that clearly doesn't want to be on is a dangerous solution. That's when you turn everything off and keep it safe, and you call in an electrician or somebody who knows what they're doing in order to fault find it properly. So to summarize, your RCD is not there to annoy you. It's there to protect you from either electrical shocks or from faults that you often can't see. It will usually trip because of either faulty appliances or aging appliances, moisture or damp getting in somewhere, especially outside or in bathrooms, earth faults somewhere inside of the wiring, lots of small earth leakages adding up from modern electronics, damaged cable or DIY wiring, or on a very rare occasion because the RCD itself has become faulty over time. Now, like I've mentioned to you in the video, you can do some basic checks yourself. You can unplug things. I want you to check for patterns. I want you to look at the outside equipment. But beyond that, if you're still having issues, it really does need proper testing and resolving. Because if your RCD is tripping regularly, that is your electrical system telling you that something isn't right. Okay, it might be something small and simple, or it might be an early sign that something much bigger is happening. But either way, ignoring it isn't a great idea. Now, if you are in London or the surrounding areas and you'd like to get in contact with me about any electrical work that you'd like done in your own home, or you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, you can get in touch by clicking the link. It should be somewhere on your screen now, and again, also down below in the video description box. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you again in the next one.